Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the singing of our national anthem, O Canada. Please sing with me. O Canada. Now that's how it's done. J'ai une question importante à vous poser. Après cette décennie perdue des libéraux qui a affaibli le Canada face aux États-Unis avec les taxes et les impôts trop élevés et une inflation hors de contrôle, est-ce que les libéraux méritent un quatrième mandat? Non, absolument. N'est-il pas plutôt le moment de mettre le Canada d'abord? Oui, absolument. Pour faire changement avec un nouveau gouvernement conservateur qui va réduire les taxes et les impôts, accélérer la construction des logements, exploiter nos ressources naturelles, stopper les crimes et ramener nos emplois ici au Canada, pour remettre le Canada dans une position de force face aux États-Unis de Donald Trump. All right, everybody. It's an important question. After this lost liberal decade, with costs and crime up and our economy down, and under America's thumb, do you think the Liberals deserve a fourth term? Or is it time to put Canada first for a change? With a new conservative government that will axe taxes, build homes, unleash resources, stop crime, and bring home jobs to stand up to Trump from a position of strength. Now, common sense Canadians like you know we need a change. And who's the person to deliver that change? Pierre Poilievre. Now, here to tell you more about the only man who can stop Mark Carney, I have the pleasure of introducing to you Anaida Poilievre. Now, Anaida is an entrepreneur. She's a dedicated advocate against human trafficking and a staunch supporter of women's empowerment. Born in Venezuela and raised in Montreal, Anaida moved to Ottawa in 2006, where she met her future husband, Pierre Poilievre. And they married in 2017. Now, an active member of the conservative movement, she is the driving force behind the conservative merch. Many of you are wearing it tonight. That's her efforts. And she's, of course, Pierre's #1 supporter. elle a lancé Their Stories Matter, une plateforme en ligne dédiée à donner la parole aux suivants de trafic de personnes. Anna is committed to supporting women and elevating them through her online magazine, Pretty and Smart Co., and her Lead Her Forward initiative, which seeks to pay it forward by inspiring, connecting, and elevating women. But she will tell you that her greatest accomplishment and most important roles are being a supportive wife and the proud mother of Valentina and Cruz. Mesdames et messieurs, sans plus tarder, Anaida Poilievre. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Anaida Poilievre.
Bonsoir, Fredericton. Good evening. Bonsoir, quel plaisir d'être ici. What a pleasure to be here. Donc, Canada, nous y voilà. Nous nous retrouvons dans un moment crucial où nous devons décider si nous allons élire pour un 4e mandat un gouvernement qui a affaibli notre économie, qui nous a laissés avec une énorme criminalité, qui nous a laissés avec des maisons qui ne sont non abordables et qui nous a laissés vulnérables face aux menaces de Donald Trump, ou si nous allons élire un gouvernement conservateur pour mettre le Canada d'abord. So, Canada, here we are in a crucial time where we must decide whether we're going to elect for a 4th time a government that has weakened our economy, left us with unaffordable housing and food, rampant crime, and vulnerable in the face of threats of Donald Trump, or are we going to elect a conservative government who's going to put Canada first for a change? This journey began about 3 years ago for my husband and our family, when Pierre decided to run for the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. Ever since, my husband stepped away from the Ottawa bubble to travel from coast to coast to coast so that he can listen Canadians directly. Because what we need, it is a government and a leader of the people, by the people. Leadership is not born from the boardroom of the elite. Leadership is not born because of fancy titles and degrees. Leadership is born from the true love of our country, our true north, strong and free. My husband has been here all along fighting for all of us. Meanwhile, Mr. Carney has been abroad, and he has been looking down on this work. If Mr. Carney wants to seek the highest office, he's out to give the respect it deserves. Yes, my husband has spent his life right here at home fighting for our youth, our families, our seniors, and that is an honorable thing to do. So when Mr. Carney says that my husband doesn't know how the world works, well, I'll tell you what. He knows how Canada works, and he's going to make it work for all of us. Now, I love all of my husband's policies, but I think that to really understand the policies and the why, we need to understand the man and the family behind of it all. My husband was born from a teenage mother who gave him out for adoption to 2 school teachers in Calgary. They have worked really hard for everything, living paycheck to paycheck. Pierre worked for everything in his life. Nothing was given to him. That's right, thank you. I was born in Caracas, Venezuela, and my family immigrated here to Canada and Montreal in 1995 when I was 8 years old. My father's first job was collecting fruits and vegetables, because that's the only thing he could do. Later on, he had 3 minimum wage jobs just so that he can make ends meet and feed our family. By the time that I was 17, I had left home and been 100% financially independent. By the time that I was 19, I had moved to Ottawa, took a student loan, and worked full-time so that I can put myself through university and feed myself. By the time that I was 25, I had saved enough money, $25,000, to put a down payment on a little townhouse in the east end of Ottawa, a 2-bedroom house. That, I was a 25-year-old single girl. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was in 2012, 3 years before the Liberals took office. So that is the Canadian promise that we are fighting for and that we want to bring back so that all of us, our youth, our families, our immigrants, they can all afford a house and food again. It shouldn't be this way in Canada. But ladies and gentlemen, there is hope on the way. My family is standing united, and we're here together in this fight with you, and we need you with us. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is why it is my pleasure to share with you my husband, the next Prime Minister of Canada, Pierre Poilievre.
Who's ready to put Canada first for a change? Who's ready to axe some taxes? Who's ready to build some homes? Who's ready to build some pipelines? And who's ready to bring home change to the country we love? Wow, quel excellent groupe. Oui, bring it home. Bring it home. Bring it home. Wow. this crowd. Look at this crowd, incredible. And it's not just, I need you as well. What a guy. Thank you. Just for that, you get a shirt. There you go. There you go. Thanks for that. A great patriot. Look at this crowd. Incredible. I think that New Brunswickers are ready to put Canada first. What do you think? Ready for a change. Thank you. I love you too. So it's not just the quantity of people, it's the quality. Look at these. They're like incredible people. Very good-looking crowd. Patriotic, strong, optimistic. Look at those smiles. People feel hopeful again. They see hope on the horizon. They want to bring home the promise of this country. La promesse du Canada, que chacun qui travaille fort peut avoir une belle vie dans une belle maison, dans une communauté sécuritaire, protégée par des braves soldats sous notre fier drapeau canadien. That is the Canadian promise, that anyone who works hard can have a great life in a beautiful house on a safe street, protected by brave troops under a proud flag. That's what it means to put Canada first. And that's why we're running, because after the lost Liberal decade, here's the question. After the lost Liberal decade of rising costs and crime and a falling economy under the thumb of the Americans, do we want to elect the Liberals for a fourth term? Or do we want to put Canada first for a change with a new Conservative government that will axe taxes, build homes, and make our country strong? Change. Who wants change? The Liberals will take the change out of your pocket. There's none left. Everyone's already broke. But they're pulling a fast one again, aren't they? After the last Liberal decade, they want you to forget that they doubled housing costs, that they drove up food prices 37% faster in Canada than in the United States with their carbon tax on the farmers and truckers who bring us the food. They want you to forget that they drove 25% of Canadians into poverty. They want you to forget the crime, chaos, drugs, and disorder, the 50,000 blessed souls that we lost to drug overdoses because of their radical liberal ideology on drugs. They want us to forget that they blocked pipelines and mines and drove hundreds of billions of dollars out of our country into the United States, making us helpless against the unjustified threats of Donald Trump. They want you to forget all of that, and the trick they're employing is replacing Justin Trudeau with his economic advisor and hand-picked successor, Mark Carney. Now, it is, as Atlantic Canadians will tell you, it might be a new face at the helm, but it's the same ship, the same Liberal ship, the same Liberal crew, the same broken-down Liberal boat, the same sinking ship that's going straight down. That is not change, my friends. That is more of the disastrous status quo that Canadians want to leave behind. It's the same Liberal ministers, same Liberal MPs, same Liberal promises, same Liberal results if you elect them for a fourth Liberal term. The only difference is that they now have an even weaker and more compromised leader than they had before. Mark Carney has already demonstrated that he's prepared to sell out our country for his own self-interest. He moved his corporate headquarters from Canada to the United States just 6 days after Trump threatened our economy with tariffs. He could have pounded his fist on that mahogany desk at that boardroom meeting and said, Donald Trump is threatening Canada, and I won't back down. I'm keeping the jobs in Canada. But instead, he chose his profit before his patriotism, and Canadians will never forget it. And while our schools and hospitals were starving for money and our taxpayers were overcharged, he stashed his corporate cash in Bermuda so that he wouldn't have to pay Canadian taxes. He took a $250 million loan for his company from a Chinese government-backed bank, personally traveling to Beijing to secure the deal in October, while he was the economic advisor to Justin Trudeau, who should have been acting in Canada's national interest. Now, he is locked up in that conflict of interest. And the worst thing about all of these decisions is that he still owns the shares and the investments in the company he moved to New York, for which he held the taxes down in Bermuda, and from which he got the loan from the Chinese government. All of these foreign interests will be pulling his strings. My friends, this is not a way to change from the lost Liberal decade. Mark Carney will make it even worse. And just today, we saw evidence of that. Did you hear the story of this Liberal MP? It's incredible. The Chinese government puts out a bounty on the head of a Canadian citizen because he criticized China. And the Liberal candidate in the same riding as this Conservative candidate said that that people should turn him over to the Chinese government to send him back to China where he could be killed on a bounty. And Mark Carney was asked what he thought, and he said he would keep that Liberal candidate in place. Of course he would. When you owe the Chinese government $250 million, it's pretty hard to stand up for Canada, isn't it? If this is the question, as we face the threats of trade tariffs from Trump, if Mark Carney will not stand up for a Canadian citizen whose life is threatened by a hostile foreign regime, will he ever stand up for Canada against the Americans? Of course not. But he is weak, out of touch, and compromised. But he will never put Canada first. And that's why the choice in this election is very clear. Do you want a weak and compromised Liberal to carry on with a fourth Liberal term of driving costs and crime up and driving our country down? Or are you ready for a change with a Canada First Conservative government? Canada First starts with bringing home our jobs and our money, with a real Bring It Home plan. Bring it home is my terminology for two reasons. One, because we're going to be bringing home the hundreds of billions of dollars Liberals have driven out of the country to hostile foreign economies. And two, because you are going to be bringing home more of your paycheck. Let's start with that. The Bring It Home tax cut will lower tax rates on work, investment, energy, and home building. Let's start with work. Anybody see that meme online of the kid sitting in the park with his dad, and kid's got his face in his hands, bawling his eyes out. He's asked his dad, what is an income tax for him? And dad said, well, it's just like your school report card, just the opposite. The harder you work, the worse you do. Income tax is the fine you pay for the crime of working hard. Today, Canadians spend more on tax than they do on food, clothing, and shelter combined. The government has become a morbidly obese, never satisfied monster that consumes more and more of everything that you produce. Now it has grown by 80% in cost, and most of that has fallen on working class taxpayers forced to pay more. That is why I have announced that a Canada First Conservative government will cut income taxes by 15% so you bring home more of each dollar you earn. We will cut taxes on investment. Investment is what it takes to make things move. Capital goes where capital grows. So in Canada today, in an hour of work, we produce about 52 American dollars of GDP. In the States, they produce 80 American dollars per hour worked. That means they could work about a third less and make just as much as us. Why is that? We have better workers, harder workers, but why are we making less money? The answer is we have less tools and technology. You take the total investment in our economy, divide it by the total number of workers, it works out to about $15,000 US. In the States, it's $28,000. So you have two workers side by side. Let's say they both shovel snow. One guy on the Canadian side, he's got a small little hand shovel. On the American side, he starts with the same shovel. But the next year, the American gets a much bigger shovel. And the Canadian guy still has a small one. And on the American side, the next year, he gets a big snowblower. And the Canadian still got a small shovel. And on the south side of the border the next year, he gets a big tractor with a big shovel on the front. And the Canadian's still heaving away, using muscular power. After a while, the American starts to get pretty far ahead. We have less investment in Canada because our taxes are high and our red tape is brutal. And there is an enormous incentive to send money out of the country. For example, Mark Carney stuffed his corporate cash in Bermuda because he didn't have to pay taxes there. So many other companies move their money abroad for the same reason. We're going to make it advantageous to bring the money home, starting with allowing you to put an extra $5,000 in your tax-free savings account as long as the money goes to Canadian companies. Canadian-only companies. Second, there's the capital gains tax. When a small businessman sells at the end of his career, he has to pay this big tax. Or if you imagine a factory, a manufacturing company has some vacant land, they want to sell it to a home builder who will build homes with it. But as soon as they sell the land, they have to pay the tax, meaning they don't go ahead with the sale. So there's no transaction, there's no homes built, and there's no money for the factory to invest in a new assembly line or a CNC machine. And so the investment never occurs. This tax seizes up our economy and locks out investment. And that is why I have announced that we will put Canada first by allowing you to pay no capital gains tax if you reinvest all the money in Canada. Now, you take the money out of Canada, you pay the capital gains tax. If you want to go buy a boat and sit on the lake, well, nothing wrong with that, but you have to pay the tax. But if instead you sell your investment but reinvest it in Canadian home building, Canadian factories, a Canadian company that builds pipelines, digs mines, and creates jobs in this country, then you will be able to do it tax-free. We will also encourage the companies that have shipped their money abroad to bring it home. This will be like rocket fuel that will launch our economy above the Americans, make us strong and independent and self-reliant. Bring it home. Bring it home. And then there's taxes on energy. The Liberals have brought in a crippling, job-killing, inflationary carbon tax that has driven up the cost of everything you buy. Now, up until about 3 weeks ago, they told us that the entire planet would be lit ablaze with fire if there were no tax on you filling up your minivan, right? So they've had this carbon tax in place for 7 years. The carbon tax law is still in place. But tomorrow, the Liberals are going to hide the carbon tax from the gas pump until the election is over. Mr. Carney, Canadians are not stupid. They know exactly what you're doing. You're hiding the tax until after the election, and if, God forbid, Mr. Carney and the Liberals were elected for a 4th time, they would slap that tax back on, raise it higher than ever before, and cancel the rebate that was supposed to go along with it. Furthermore, he has said that he wants to, this is part he's been honest about, he wants to raise, Well, in fairness, Mark Carney has not been in the country for most of his adult life, so he's had 3 passports up until recently. But he's admitted that he wants to bring in a much bigger industrial carbon tax on steel, on lumber, on aluminum, on fertilizer, on all the other industrial products that we need to survive as a modern civilization. But he doesn't think you're smart enough to know that it will all be passed on to you in lower wages and higher prices. And this is some area where he's got a lot in common with Donald Trump. Both want to tax Canadian industry. Trump wants to do it with tariffs. Carney wants to do it with a carbon tax. You know, we're talking about fighting Trump on tariffs, and I agree with that. But I'll tell you something, it's even worse when the tariffs and taxes are being put on our businesses by our own government. And so let me be clear. We will put Canada first by axing the carbon tax for everyone, for everything, for good, for real, for a change. Who's ready to axe the tax? Tax. Axe the tax. And we're going to axe the worst tax of all, the inflation tax. Inflation tax. The inflation tax is the worst because it's sneaky and it's undemocratic. Sneaky because when governments want to spend money they don't have without telling you how they're going to pay for it, or borrowing it out in the open, what they do is print cash. They fire up the printing machines and flood the economy with easy money. Now, our money supply in bills, coins, and bank deposits went from about $1.8 trillion to $2.5 trillion in the span of about 4 years. This was while Mark Carney was Justin Trudeau's economic advisor. He said that the biggest concern at the time was, quote, deflation. Mr. Carney said that the risk was prices might go down. Wouldn't that be terrible if you had to pay less for food and housing, if your dollar actually gained more value than it lost? And so he said, let's print money like crazy, and it will be like magical wealth that fell from the sky. Well, for those who get their hands on that money first, the bureaucracy, the bankers, the financial insiders, it is like money from the sky. They get to spend and invest it before it loses its value. But the problem is that when the value is gone, everyone else has to pay more for what's left. It's like if you have an economy with 10 apples and $10. It's $1 an apple. But if you double the number of dollars to 20, and you still only have 10 apples, you're not twice as rich. It's just that each apple now costs twice as much. Inflation is too many dollars chasing too few goods. That is inflation. How do you like them apples? So it's the second reason that it is it's the worst tax is because it's undemocratic. We have a principle in our system 800 years old, going right back to the fields of Runnymede in England when they signed the Magna Carta, the Great Charter, which is there shall be no taxation without the representation of the people paying it. They have to vote for it. But there is no vote in the House of Commons on the inflation tax. It's done in shady back rooms by insiders and bankers, and everyone else pays the price with no accountability. They assume that it's the local grocer who raised the food prices, or the local gas station who raised the price at the pump, when in fact it's actually the government that caused all of it. And the third reason it's the worst tax is because it takes money from the working people's paychecks and gives it in inflated asset values to the billionaires and millionaires. It's a transfer of wealth from the have-nots to the have-yachts. And that is the war in the working class that we have seen during the lost Liberal decade. Now, the money printing and the inflation is simply the symptom. The disease is overspending. Government that has grown beyond our means, spending on things we do not need and did not ask for. As a result, Conservatives will cut bureaucracy, consultants, handouts to corporate insiders, foreign aid, and other waste to bring down the deficit and bring down inflation. so that your money retains its value and that a dollar earned can turn into a dollar spent, that your money should grow in its purchasing power when we have solid and sound money, and that should be able to buy homes again. After the lost Liberal decade, housing costs have literally doubled. And today, Mark Carney doubled down on Justin Trudeau's housing policy. He announced that the solution to the Liberal housing crisis is to create a $35 billion bureaucracy in Ottawa. Have you ever seen bureaucrats building homes? They've already spent $80 billion on their so-called affordable housing programs, which have doubled the cost of housing. Whenever I ask them about why housing has got so expensive under them, they say, don't worry, we've created really expensive programs to pay for it. So now you're paying more to buy a home and paying more taxes for the programs that drive up the cost. He is actually, and of course, Brookfield, Carney's company, in which he's still invested, has abused the tenants, leaving them and living in miserable conditions and doing false rent evictions to kick them out on the street. A man who profits off the housing crisis will never fix the housing crisis. Good point. There you go. She's a very smart lady. A very smart lady over there indeed. And so the solution, the reason why is housing costs so expensive in Canada? We have the land, the labor, the lumber. It should be dirt cheap because we have the most dirt to build on. But yet, our housing has gone up faster than in any other G7 country during the lost Liberal decade. In fact, Toronto and Vancouver are now the most expensive markets anywhere in North America. Canada's housing costs have outstripped incomes more than in any other OECD country over the last lost Liberal decade. Now, what's driving them up? It's government bureaucracy. More money from a new home goes to taxes, delays, permits, charges, consultants, lawyers, than goes to the people who actually build the homes. Can you imagine? A bureaucrat gets more money from a new home than does the carpenter who builds it. And to add insult to injury, the carpenter cannot afford to buy the home that he builds. So, we're going to reverse that policy. We're going to cut the bureaucracy and the taxes. Canada First Conservatives will eliminate the federal sales tax on new homes. We will incentivize municipalities to speed up permits, free up land, and cut development charges to build 15% more homes per year. We will sell off 15% of government buildings and land and use that land to build more homes. We're going to cut the bureaucracy to build the homes. And you know what it takes to build the homes? Boots, not suits. Boots, not suits. Do we have any tradesmen in the house? Yes. The people who build stuff, fix stuff, move stuff, and make stuff. What's your trade? Right on, a plumber. Can you ever give it up for the plumber? Oh my goodness, that's funny. I was just thinking, he builds the houses. Oh, you're a home builder back there. What's your trade? A carpenter. I love the carpenters. You know, we got another carpenter back there. And today I was honored to be the first Conservative leader, maybe in history, to receive the support of the Atlantic Canadian Carpenters Union. God love them. Hey, there he is. Come on up here. Come on up here.
I'm just okay.
Introduce yourself.
I'm Peter Dawson. I'm the lawyer for the Carpenters Union in New Brunswick. And we're proud to support Pierre Poilievre here in New Brunswick to build houses back again after 10 years of it not happening.
Boots, not suits! Boots, not suits. And behind the slogan is a real plan. Here's our plan. We're going to restore the $4,000 apprenticeship grant to give our kids a boost when they go to the apprenticeship. We're going to team up with unions and employers to provide the funds for 350,000 young people to go through training to be an apprentice or a tradesman. We're gonna harmonize the health and safety rules across the country so that our tradespeople don't have to take an unpaid 4-day course every time they go from one province to another. A Canadian should be able to work anywhere in Canada. We're going to bring tax fairness for our traveling trades workers. Our CEO can write off the full cost of his private jet to jet around the world, but a tradesman only gets to write off $4,000. I'm sorry, but if you're a tradesman and you're going back and forth to Fort Mac 20 times a year, $4,000 just ain't going to cut it. That is why we will remove the cap entirely and allow our tradesmen to write off the full cost of food, transportation, and accommodation to build our country. And they're going to have a lot of work to do because there's a lot of building to get done. My message to every young person, if I could give you one piece of advice, go study a trade. Get a trade. Get a trade. Get a trade. There's one thing I wish I'd done is got a trade. I wish I could say that I had a trade. I think it's the people who know how to do the trades work have an exceptional brain power for solving problems. I go to last year I went to 600 different events. Most of them are businesses. And the medium-sized businesses often, they're in factories and warehouses about this size. They have 200 employees. They're all run by tradespeople now. It's not lawyers and MBAs. It's people who started off in the trades and then used the problem-solving ability it gave them to run things. And that's why we need more people in the trades. And they're also going to need to do a lot of building. Because I announced today that as Prime Minister, I will repeal the No New Pipelines Law, C-69, and we're going to build pipelines. Build some pipelines. Absolutely. The choice, this is after the lost Liberal decade. They killed the Energy East pipeline. You imagine where we would be today. There I looked out today and saw the incredible refinery, the Irving refinery. They would today be processing 1 million barrels of oil every day from Western Canada. And let's just say that the price of oil on a given day is 70 American dollars, close to 100 Canadian dollars. That means $100 million of Canadian oil would today be running through the St. John Irving refinery had the Liberals not killed that pipeline. They changed the rules in the middle of the game to make it impossible to get done, so the company canceled it and they moved their money to Texas. And then we saw them block the Northern Gateway pipeline that would have taken Western oil to the Pacific, 500,000 barrels that could be going to Asia. So now that money goes, those barrels go to the States at an enormous price discount, about $15 below the world price, which the Americans happily go around and sell at a massive profit at our expense. They must be laughing at us. Then Mark Carney testified in Parliament against that pipeline to try and kill it. He is part of the radical net zero movement. Net zero growth, net zero jobs, net zero paychecks. While he supported carbon tax in Canada, he profited off American coal. While he blocked pipelines in Canada, his company profited off of Middle Eastern pipelines. He didn't want competition for his business, and guess what? He still owns that business, so he'll have a vested profit motive in blocking Canadian energy to make his foreign interests more profitable. He has the same radical, loony left members of his cabinet as Justin Trudeau. Stephen Guilbeault, you ever heard of him? They are still in his cabinet, still blocking all the resources. They still have in law C-69, the No New Pipelines bill. The bottom line is he will say anything he has to trick people into voting for him. You know, we just caught him plagiarizing. Did you hear about this? He plagiarized his way through university, 10 confirmed instances of plagiarism in one essay. And now he expects you to believe him on the eve of the election that he's had some kind of epiphany on energy. My friends, the choice is this. In the next election, do you want to give Liberals fourth term to block our resources and enrich the Americans, or do you want to put Canada first for a change by unlocking our resources to bring home our jobs? Bring it home. We will repeal C-69 to build Canadian pipelines with Canadian steel to bring Canadian energy to Canadian refineries. We will back a national energy corridor, a pre-approved zone from Western to Eastern Canada so that our companies can take our resources from the West to the East and off to the world to turn dollars for dictators into paychecks for our people in this country. We will approve LNG, liquefied natural gas. We have 1,300 trillion cubic feet of natural gas here in Canada. Now, the Americans have built 8 liquefaction export terminals in the last 10 years. The Qataris have doubled their production. In Canada, we haven't completed a single one, even though there were 18 proposed the day Justin Trudeau took office. He says there's no business case. Mark Carney, being his economic advisor, agreed with him on that. Let me tell you about the business case. The price of natural gas, a million metric British thermal units in Europe is $15. In Canada, it's $4. So here's the business case. We're going to do this really slowly for our Liberal friends. If you can take something worth $4 and sell it for $15 and do that billions and billions of times, that's a business case, okay? So the only thing, I asked the businesses, what do you have to do to get it done? How can we help? He said, one thing, get out of the way. We need to get out of the way and grant rapid permits so that we can build these big, beautiful plants. In Canada, we have a massive advantage. We have cold weather that makes it 25% cheaper to liquefy a gas compared to the U.S. Gulf Coast. We have shorter shipping distances. To Asia, it's 11 days from Canada. It's 20 days from the U.S. Gulf Coast. Shorter shipping distances from the East Coast to Europe. The Germans, the French, the Greeks, the Japanese have all asked for our natural gas. And when I'm Prime Minister, they'll be sending us billions of dollars because we will approve those plants, we will send the gas, and we will bring home the jobs for our people in this country. We want the great blue-collar jobs, but we also want our brilliant professionals. We need more doctors and nurses in our hospitals. Do you know we have 32,000 immigrant nurses and 20,000 immigrant doctors banned from working because the bureaucracy won't let them prove their qualifications? When I got my eye surgery done, the technician there, he's also a surgeon in the UAE. He flies to the UAE to do 10 days of surgery, then comes back to his family here. Will we only let him work as a technician? Apparently, Emirati eyeballs are different than Canadian eyeballs. In Toronto, they say that if you have a heart attack, don't call 911, call an Uber because the driver is probably a doctor. 84% of Filipino nurses in Canada can't work as nurses, even though they're perfectly qualified. What's the solution to this? The same thing that we did in the trades for the last 72 years. We created the Red Seal to test people up to a national standard, letting them work everywhere in the country. Let's bring in a Blue Seal so that our immigrant doctors can take a test, prove they're qualified, and get working, reducing wait times in our hospitals. Common sense. By bringing home these paychecks, we will fortify our economy. We will make ourselves strong and self-reliant so that we can stand up to Donald Trump from a position of force and strength. We need to be a nation that stands on its own 2 feet, that supplies its own resources, that upgrades and adds value to those resources and sends them to markets at home and abroad without relying on one market. We will stand up to President Trump from a position of strength. And when we're stronger abroad, we will be safer at home. We need to stop the crime. Is there any crime in Fredericton? After the lost Liberal decade, crime is running out of control. Radical catch and release, hug a thug policies have turned the worst offenders onto the street. The good news is we actually don't have a lot of criminals in Canada. The bad news is they're very productive. There's a small number of criminals that do a phenomenal amount of crime. Why? Because we let them. They go back out on the streets within literally hours of their arrest. As our friend Rob Moore works so hard to fight against crime, we give it up for Rob Moore, a great lawyer and crime fighter. So, in Vancouver, they had to arrest the same 40 offenders 6,000 times. In Penticton, there's one guy who, when he's out of jail, he raises the crime rate for the entire city, all by himself. The police can actually look at the crime rate going up and down and tell when this fellow Levi has been loose. One guy. Well, the solution is pretty simple. We have to repeal the Liberal laws that allowed this to happen. C-75, which says that the judge must release the offender at the, quote, earliest opportunity under the least onerous conditions. That is why the offender continues to get out. Then there's C-5, which requires the judges grant house arrest, even to the most prolific offenders. So a career car thief can serve his sentence in the comfort of his living room, watching Netflix or playing Grand Theft Auto. And then there's C-83, which allows Paul Bernardo out of a maximum security penitentiary into a medium security penitentiary. These are all Liberal laws, and if Liberals are elected to a fourth term, they will make it even worse. They will turn loose even more criminals into our streets, while law-abiding Canadians are mercilessly targeted. But the good news is it doesn't have to be this way. We will have change to put law-abiding Canadians first. We will repeal C-75 and bring in jail, not bail. Jail, not bail. We will repeal Liberal law C-5 to end house arrest and put real offenders behind real prison bars. And we will repeal C-83 to require that Paul Bernardo and all other mass murderers go into maximum security penitentiaries where they will stay forever until they come out in a box. And then we will secure our borders to stop the illegal guns that are responsible for over 80% of the crime. 99% of shipping containers enter this country with no inspection. That's the source of the drugs, guns, and stolen cars. And then we have unguarded portions of our border that CBSA officers are not even allowed to patrol. Our common sense Canada First plan will secure our borders with 2,000 more frontline CBSA officers, paid for by having 2,000 fewer bureaucrats in back offices. Boots, not suits. We will have high-powered scanners that can peer right through the metal walls of the shipping containers to see what's inside them. Surveillance towers along our border to stop illegal crossings of land and prohibited people and prohibited substances. And as I said, we're going to have a dollar for dollar law to pay for things. So how are we going to pay for it? We are going to cancel the wasteful multi-billion-dollar gun grab that targets hunters and sport shooters. Absolutely. Make no mistake. Make no mistake, the Liberals have said it in their own words. They will ban your hunting rifle. Tell everyone at the hunting camp. Tell everyone at the hunting camp, if the Liberals get back in, they will ban every single hunting rifle in this country. They cannot stand the idea that someone would have the independence to go and harvest the protein of the land, to bring home a deer or a moose to feed their own family, because of course then you don't need the government. The last thing they want is for you to have that feeling of independence. They don't understand that in rural communities across this country, after 10 years of Liberal food price inflation, there are many families that wouldn't get any protein at all if they weren't able to hunt for it. So here's the choice. Here's the choice. With Conservatives, we will protect Canadians from criminals. With Liberals, they'll protect turkeys from hunters. Or maybe I should say that we'll protect Canadians from turkeys, but in reality, we know that it's not Grandpa Joe's hunting rifle causing the problem. It's the real criminals and gun smugglers. We will bring in life sentences for gun smugglers and other serious criminals. And then, what's that? Well, we don't need to do that. We don't need to do that. We just need to vote them out. Vote them out. Vote them out. That's what we're going to do. What we're going to do is vote them out of office and give Canadians back control of their lives. We're going to bring real change to put Canada first. And that includes standing up against the scourge of fentanyl and drug overdoses. My friends, this is possibly the biggest tragedy of the lost Liberal decade. 50,000 people have died in one decade in Canada from opioid overdoses. That is more than died fighting for us in World War II. Not a week goes by that I don't meet a family member who tells me, there we are right there, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for your loss. We hear these, may she rest in peace. God bless you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We hear these stories all the time. I got a letter from a father the other day, and he said, I held my wife's hand when she gave birth to our baby boy, and then 25 years later, I held her hand again when we opened the door to find a police officer in tears to tell us that he was lost to fentanyl. These are the stories we hear again and again and again. The drugs are everywhere on our streets. The dealers pay no price for manufacturing and trafficking it. We've lost so many people. The government's response is to make drugs even more available, tax-funded opioids that get sold to children. Profits pay for deadlier fentanyl that's 100 times more powerful than heroin. There are no penalties for the serious traffickers who are often released on bail even after they are caught with massive sums. To show you how deadly this stuff is, 40 milligrams of fentanyl is enough to kill 20 people. If you are selling fentanyl en masse, you are doing the equivalent of firing bullets into a crowded stadium. You might not know who you're killing, but there's definitely someone who's going to die. And that is why my government will treat fentanyl mass traffickers and producers as the murderers that they are, with life sentences. Life sentences, and then we will secure the borders to keep the illegal drugs out. We will stop funding opioids, and instead we will put the money into treatment and recovery services to bring our loved ones home drug-free. I think of the wonderful treatment centers like Harvest House here in Eastern Canada, here in the Atlantic, where they bring young men and women in off the street. They provide them with detox, counseling, group therapy, physical exercise. They help them get into a job and a home. They reunite them with their family, give them some faith again, teach them a little bit about how to get back on their feet so that they can start all over again. What I said to those young men when I visited them, I sat around the table and I said, I need you. I need a favor from you. I need you to get better so that you can go find the next person who's on a street corner and you can pick them up and you can bring them here and you can save their lives. Surviving that addiction is like a superpower. You will be able to say that you've been to the bottom of the valley and you know how to climb back to the top of the mountain. So my message to anyone who is out there today suffering from addiction, hang on, have hope, help is on the way. We're going to unite this country in its own defense. We're going to stand up for our seas, skies, and air. We're going to rebuild Canada's armed forces to protect Canada. I need you to elect military veteran Brian MacDonald right here in Fredericton, Oromocto. I need him on my team to rebuild the forces. Together, we are going to fill all the vacancies in our armed forces by ramping up recruitment faster than in any peacetime in our history. We are going to buy fighter jets, Poseidon aircraft that can look down and intercept the submarines that are swimming around from China and Russia in our Arctic waters. We are going to procure more and best equipment. We're going to ensure that our soldiers and veterans have the support they need. We'll buy 4 massive icebreakers to reclaim the icy Arctic waters. And we will open the first Arctic base in Canada since the Cold War, CFB Iqaluit. Are there any of the great men and women here in this room who serve at CFB Gagetown? Give them a round of applause. Our heroes. Give them a round of applause. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your service. And we will reinstate a warrior culture, not a woke culture. More and more of our young people will be recruited to the cadets so that they can learn. We got a cadet over there. I love the cadets. Army, Navy, or Air? Air, you going to be a pilot? No? Well, The Army cadets are too far away. Someone move, Brian, can you move the Army cadets closer to her house? She'd be a great cadet. Look at that bright young kid. The young people getting mentorship from our soldiers and Arctic Rangers will learn new skills of survivalism, discipline, punctuality, and all kinds of other things that will help them appreciate our country and contribute in the future. We need to bring our people together and unite our nation as one country, contributing to a common cause. We need to take back control of our immigration system. After the lost Liberal decade, we had the best immigration system in the world before the Liberals, but then they went ahead with this radical century initiative that grew our population rate at 3 times the rate of our housing stock, leaving us with a housing shortage. When I am Prime Minister, we will reject the century initiative. We will cap immigration so that population never grows faster than the availability of homes, health care, and jobs. We will honor our history. We will honor our history. We will put up rather than knocking down our statues, including beautiful statues to John A. MacDonald. We will reinstate the famous 5, Terry Fox, our soldiers, and countless other heroes to our passport. We will be a self-reliant, strong, sovereign people that harvests its resources, trades with each other, builds homes for its youth, protects its vulnerable, secures its border, tells its stories, sings its songs, waves its flag, a nation that gives hope to everybody. And so I bring hope tonight to the single mother going to bed hungry, wondering how you will feed your kids in the morning. Have hope, change is on the way. To the young couple worried about your biological clock running out before you can afford a home for kids, have hope. Change is on the way. To the military veteran who's barely able to pay his rent, our message is to you, thank you, and have hope. Change is on the way for you too. We will go. We are not a nation of tax collectors and toll masters, of bureaucrats and busybodies, of gatekeepers and grandees, rulers and rule makers. No, we are a nation of explorers and entrepreneurs, adventurers and artists, workers and warriors, pioneers and patriots. What binds us together is the Canadian promise that anyone from anywhere can achieve anything, that hard work gets you a great life in a beautiful, affordable home, on a safe street, protected by brave soldiers under our proud flag. Canada first, let's bring it home!